Welcome back to Diamonds in the Rough, where I look at some of the most criminally underrated films I've ever seen. And today we have one that I'm not surprised a lot of people tend to shit on, but it actually generated more love than most people would have thought. And this is also the movie that got me to call the segment what it is, as you all have probably guessed. And today we're going to be looking at why Aladdin 2019 is indeed a diamond in the rough. Now, I've complained about Disney quite a bit on this channel, especially since the movies they've released this year have not exactly been stellar. They've had one very good movie, one mediocre movie, and the rest were shit. And had I been doing movie reviews last year, it would have about been the same thing. There would have been two movies that were really good, this one being included, the other one being Avengers Endgame. One of them being mediocre, which would have been Rise of Skywalker, and the rest were trash. So, Disney's hit a bit of a slump recently, and most people have started to notice that with their lack of creativity. Now, I've already harped on this too much, so go watch my video on why does Disney suck in 2020, where I went into more detail about it. So I'm not going to get into it here. I'm here to talk about a movie. So what I'm going to do first is briefly give my thoughts on the 1992 Aladdin. It is my favorite Disney animated film. I know a lot of sorry, allergies. I know a lot of people will say their favorite is Lion King, or Beauty and the Beast, or fucking Hunchback of Notre Dame. Something like that. Normally, if you look at people's rankings of Disney films, more than likely, the number one spot will be a film from the Renaissance. But usually it's never Aladdin, and I find that kind of strange. I know it has issues, but what Disney film doesn't? Even Beauty and the Beast, you can probably find... Even Beauty and the Beast, I have some problems with. There are some songs in that movie that I don't particularly like. So, yeah, it's just... I never got why Aladdin, even though it was a huge hit, is still greatly loved to this day, seems to get overlooked whenever coming up with the Disney ranking list. So, and a lot of people were understandably worried that this Disney classic was going to be remade in live action, like they have with every film that's come out. Especially since most of their live action remakes are trash. And it didn't help the matter when it was announced that Guy Ritchie was going to direct. Now, Guy Ritchie is a great director. He's directed some great films, like the Sherlock Holmes movies, and some other films that he's directed that are very good. But he doesn't quite seem like the right fit for a musical. But as we found out, the other musical films didn't do much better. Apparently, Jon Favreau should never direct a musical again, though technically that wasn't his fault. That was more the animation's fault, which was Disney's fault. And Beauty and the Beast shows that Bill Condon just shouldn't direct. He directed the last two Twilight films, and while those aren't his fault, they were already going to be trash. Why would you bring him on to direct? I'm sorry, that's Cinematic Disasters portion. I'll get to Beauty and the Beast at some other point. So, I'm going to get back to Aladdin. So, I really love the 1992 Aladdin. So, you can tell that I had some high expectations for this film. I didn't need it to be better than the original. I just needed it to be good. And that's where I think a lot of people fall into this trap of hating some of these remakes, even when they're legitimately good. They hate it because they just compare it to the original. And when you compare it to the original, normally it's not going to be as good, and when it's not as good, your mindset immediately thinks it sucks. And I've fallen victim to this too, though not with the remakes, but with other things. People do the same thing with a lot of book-to-movie adaptations, or TV show-to-movies adaptations. That's why a lot of people hate the Percy Jackson films. It's because it's not what they wanted. Or with a lot of the TV show adaptations, actually, those just suck. Never mind. Other book adaptations, like why people didn't like the Maze Runner movies. It's because it's not what they wanted. Instead, they don't focus on what it is. They focus on what they want it to be. And that's where a lot of these remakes fall into that trap. And it's not necessarily their fault. Now, a lot of these remakes really do suck on their own. Because they either have way too much repeating, or they try to be so unique that they fall into the trap of not making the film interesting. Like, for example, Lion King. and Beauty and the Beast felt shot for shot, and they had no originality and no creative new ideas. They had some new ideas, but none of them were very creative, and even if they were creative, they weren't explored, and they were just kind of chucked out the window, because, oh, we're a shot-for-shot piece of trash remake. And then you have the remakes like Cinderella or Maleficent that tried to be so different, but didn't take into effect what made the original film good, threw that in the trash, and tried something different, but they didn't do it right. They forgot to make the film they were making interesting. So, that's where a lot of these remakes fall in trap, but Aladdin didn't do any of that. Were there repeated plot points? Obviously. But that's the point of a remake. The remake uses the original as an outline. And that's how I feel a lot of adaptations should be too, like book adaptation. I don't want to see the exact same thing on screen that I read in the book. If I wanted that, I'd just read the fucking book. I want to see a movie take a different approach. That's where a lot of these adaptations and remakes should go. Not where people want them to go, but where they should go. This movie uses the original as an outline, makes a few references, uses the songs, but that's it. You'll have similar scenarios, but they'll always change something up. For example, the opening of this film. In the original, it's a peddler riding a camel, and then and it literally just starts off with Arabian Nights. This one immediately starts different, where he's off on where the peddler, I don't know what you want to call him, is Genie. You all have probably seen the movie. It's Genie. A peddler was supposed to be revealed as Genie in the original cut of Aladdin, but they cut it out, so it's the same thing. Genie is on a boat with Dahlia this is all after the events of the movie, and he tells his kids he's going to tell them the story of Aladdin, the princess, and the lamp, and kicks into Arabian Nights. And the first thing that I noticed, I listened to the soundtrack before the movie, with the exception of the new song "Speechless." That's the one I'm like, no, I want to hear it I want to hear it in the movie. The rest of them, like all the songs in the original, I listened to beforehand because especially since I wanted to see if my favorite song would be in it. One Jump Ahead. Yeah, I know. That's the weird thing and that's another thing. A lot of people, whenever I say my favorite Disney song, this is my favorite Disney song, not just an Aladdin, but my favorite Disney song is One Jump Ahead. I always get a lot of people like, really? Could be anything, but it's One Jump Ahead, really? Yeah! It is! Sue me! I love One Jump Ahead. It's my favorite Disney song, and this whole Aladdin soundtrack, I love the Aladdin soundtrack. There is not a single bad song on it. Every other Disney film, I could probably find a song I don't like. Lion King, I hate most of those songs. Beauty and the Beast, there are a few songs I don't like on that one. Hunchback, it's about, I'm kind of 50-50 on that one. Even Little Mermaid, there are songs that aren't, But there are a couple songs that I'm just like, they're fine, but I don't really want to listen to them that often. Aladdin, I can listen to the soundtrack on end, and I have, especially with this live-action soundtrack. I've been listening to these songs a lot, because I really like what they did with the soundtrack in this. But, not important, but yeah, I listened to songs because I wanted to make sure One Jump Ahead was in it, and I'm like, alright, I'll listen to the rest. And Will Smith kicks into Arabian Nights, and his singing's kind of auto-tuned, which is weird, because Will Smith can sing. I know people are like, oh, he can't sing because he's auto-tuned. Will Smith can sing. He shows that in this movie. There are a couple. I know he's not a fantastic singer. I heard, I saw somewhere that someone said the only other person I could see kind of capture this energy would be Neil Patrick Harris, who is a legitimate, really great singer. That would have been cool. But I think Will Smith kind of captured this Genie a little better than Harris could have. So I'm cool with what we got. I just wish they didn't put any auto tune on it because he doesn't sound bad. But he kicks into Arabian Nights. And it's immediately different because the song is extended, providing different melodies and a bunch of new lyrics, including new verses and new takes on the chorus. Disney songs don't really have a chorus, but you know what I mean. The Arabian Nights, it provides new lyrics for those as well. So, and then we see Jafar and the thing with the Cave of Wonders, and I saw complaints that in the original, they show what's going on, so you know exactly what's happening. I kind of like what they did with this, because they provided a mystery around it. Like, if you've never seen the original, you're wondering, what's this cave? Who's this guy? What's this diamond in the rough thing? What's in there? What's this guy trying to get? Why is he here? I like a little mystery, so I think that was okay. I think it could have been handled a bit better, but I had no problem with it. Then we meet Aladdin, played by Mina Masood, and he sounds and looks exactly like the original Aladdin. Aladdin and Jasmine look and sound exactly like their animated counterparts. They really do, and they are very good in these roles. I've heard complaints about Mina Masood's singing in this movie, but he gets through One Jump Ahead just fine. One Jump Ahead, you don't really need that impressive of vocals, but he gets through it fine. I think he gets through it pretty well. I really like his take on One Jump Ahead. And I think the scene is pretty well choreographed and directed, except for one thing, and I've seen a lot of people complain about this, is when he's going up the stairs, and he's got the woman, still I think he's rather tasty. In the original, it holds on her while she's singing that. In fact, I think it cuts and gets closer to her as she's singing. This one, she's not even framing the entire line. She's still trying to get out the last few notes while she's out of frame. I thought that was a weird directing choice. I think I'm like, really? You could have held the camera on her for an extra 2 seconds? Really, Richie? Come on. But that's really the only complaint I have with the scene. And adding Jasmine in there, I think, and another thing that happens in this opening is that this isn't where we meet Aladdin. We meet Aladdin, we have a scene with Aladdin before One Jump Ahead. And I think this is okay. It gives us an introduction before his real introduction. If you get what I mean. And and one thing I liked about this is when they bring in Jasmine, they have to kind of tone down the slapstick and stunts a bit, but the stunts they do have are really cool. Like when he jumps out the window and he bounces on all those tarps, I think it's really cool. And it kind of introduces himself to the audience as well as Jasmine. That's how I kind of see it. And we get a lot more conversations between Aladdin and Jasmine in this film. In the original, they have good chemistry, but they don't get a lot of time to talk. Aladdin and Jasmine have one really short conversation in the original, and that's that. In this one, they actually their conversation is twice as long, and they actually get some really good character building moments out of these, and some nice connections that they make. And I like Abu in this. I think Abu is, that's one thing Disney remakes kind of have the struggle with. They can't animate animal faces. Even Jungle Book kind of had this problem to some extent, but with the exception of Baloo, where the animals don't really have that much expression, but the performances shined through in Jungle Book, so you can kind of let it go. And even Baloo had some kind of expression to him. Lion King fell into this trap hard. And I complained about this in my Cinematic Disaster, but they had no facial expression whatsoever. Abu is extremely expressive. At points it gets kind of weird when he's like, kind of like smiling like this when Genie asks him, he's like, did they? He's like, it's kind of weird, but it was so funny at the same time. I like the humor in this. A lot of people complain about the humor in this. I like the kind of awkward humor they go. The original actively had a lot of jokes to it. But this one, it goes for more, like, realistic, awkward humor, and I was down for that. I remember the scene where, Aladdin meets the Sultan for the first time. In the original, he's, like, coming up on, and that's not, I'll get to that, the rest of his personality when he first comes Prince Ali, when I get to the Prince Ali segment. But his meeting with the Sultan is one of the most awkward things I have ever seen in my life, where he's, like, stuttering around, he's making, like, weird he's saying, like, everything wrong, and he's, like, I don't know what he is, he's like some kind of cane and has, like, a tassel in the end, and then, like, the second the Sultan walks in, it just falls off, and I don't know, like, when I saw this in the theater, I remember it was, like, so, like, awkward and funny at the same time. I was, like, leaning down, laughing with my head in between me. It's like, I couldn't look at it, but at the same time, I couldn't stop laughing, because it was, and not even just because I was laughing at it, it was legitimately funny. But I remember I just had my head in between my knees, I was laughing so hard. So, and yeah, and I like how Jafar, captures him in this. In the original, he uses, like, the Sultan's ring, which is used very well in this. It's like he gives it to Jasmine at the end, and that's, like, kind of passing down the Sultan. The title of Sultan. And I like that Jasmine becomes the Sultan in this. That's a really good change. I thought that was a very smart change. And Jasmine's character is completely turned around. She's made interesting here. She was kind of flat in the original, even though she was still a good character. But she has so much more personality here, and she has actual motivations for wanting to, like, not marry off. Because she wants to rule the kingdom, because she thinks she knows what should be done and how it should be ruled. And the Sultan is overprotective because what happened to her mother, because her mother was killed. And they also give Jafar motivation. We never really understand what Jafar's motivations are in the original. Like, we know he wants to be Sultan, but that's it. That's all we get from him. In this one, he's dead shit on invading Shelabad, which I guess is some kind of, like, neighboring country, I guess. And there's actually, I've seen people complain, they're like, why is he so intent on this? They literally spell this out for you, is that he spent, what was it, like a year, maybe longer. He spent like at least a year in a Shalabad prison. I don't think they explained what he was in prison for, but it's Jafar. You know he was in prison for something. Maybe he tried to take over Shalabad. I don't know, but that would be my best guess. That actually makes a lot of sense. But they said he was captured and thrown in prison in Shalabad, and I guess he escaped. So he wants revenge by invading Shalabad and I guess taking it over. So maybe he was trying to take over Shalabad. And then he captures Aladdin because he breaks into the palace to talk to Jasmine, because they get more than one conversation here. He breaks into the palace to talk to her and return her bracelet. I don't know why I pretended to pull it out of my pocket. But he tries to return her bracelet because she thinks he stole it, even though Abu did. And then Jafar sees him, or Iago, I guess, sees him breaking in. And, again, people say, why does he assume Aladdin's diamond in the rough? This one they actually shows, because he's able to get into the castle. Most of these thieves would be stealing a bunch of stuff, but it shows that he wasn't actually stealing anything. He was just trying to get around. He was just trying to get in. And he talks to Jasmine, and then he gets out, even though this is kind of stupid on the last part, where he just kind of walks out the door and just starts walking down the hallway and gets caught by Hakim, who is a good character. I like Hakim in this, too. He's the leader of the guards in the palace, and he's a legit good character. I like him in this. So, he captures him, so it's kind of stupid on Aladdin's part the way he just walked out the door, but it's more clever, but it's improved how Jafar finds him. I guess I should talk about Jafar for a second. Not impressed with the guy's performance. I know Marwan Kenzari can act, because he was good in The Old Guard, which was like a July movie this year, so I don't know if this was Richie's direction, or just they told him to be more subtle, because whenever because there are some scenes where he actually shows emotion, like at the end when he rubs the lamp, gets his wish, and becomes Genie Jafar. That last scene, he shows emotion. It's a bit over the top, but that's what Jafar should be. I don't know why he didn't just go for it. That's the one thing I can complain about this movie that everybody else does. Jafar was kind of a letdown. I didn't hate him as much as everybody else did, and I like that they give him a bit of a backstory. He was a thief, like Aladdin was, and his line, steal an apple, you're a thief, steal a kingdom, and you're a statesman. That was a very good line, and I thought that was a really cool backstory for Jafar, unlike Mulan, where they pull that stupid line, you and I are not so different, I'm like, fuck you. And this line, they play it very cleverly. It's like, he gives the line, people like us must be realistic. It's not saying, oh, you and I aren't so different. He's very subtly showing we're alike, and then he shows him. He doesn't say, you and I are alike because of this, or this because we both want stuff like this. He shows him that they're both thieves, and they want more out of life, but Jafar saw it even bigger than Aladdin does. Aladdin just, from what I can get from Aladdin, he just wants a home, he wants a family, and he wants to live bigger. He's sick of living on the streets. Jafar wants to be the most powerful person in the room, and that is a good way to cover up the plot hole of him acting stupid in the end, where I wish to be a genie. Yeah, good luck with your lamp, jackass. And this one, he wishes to be the most powerful being in the universe, and that makes him become a genie due to the gray areas, which I thought was a very good idea. And they also fixed that plot hole with the Aladdin drowning, and with the second wish, they used the gray areas to kind of cover that up too. I'm like, okay, that's what this movie does. It fixes problems that people have with the first movie. It fixes plot holes. I guess I should talk about the songs. I already talked about Arabian Nights and One Jump Ahead. I think they're very well done. Friend Like Me was amazing. I was really worried how they were going to handle Friend Like Me, but they really outdid themselves here. I really liked Friend Like Me. Prince Ali was pretty good too. I think it was a bit toned down. I think they could have gone a little more bombastic with the choreography, but I like what they did. When Genie turned into the woman up on the balcony, kind of like he did in the original, I laughed so I lost it. I laughed so hard I almost fell out of my chair. And they changed lyrics in these, and some of the lyrics are like they almost had a plot hole here. They almost had a problem here, because before Genie jumps into Friend Like Me, Aladdin didn't tell him his name, and one of the big lines of Friend Like Me was said twice as Mr. Aladdin, sir. Aladdin didn't tell him his name, but they fix it here. I think they kind of realized that Aladdin didn't tell him his name, and they're like, oh shit, hey, Pasek, Paul. can you fix this? And they're like, Mr. Man, what's your name? Whatever. What would you... And at the end, he's Mr. Aladdin. Yes, one wish... Yeah, like, Aladdin has to tell him his name in the song. So I like how they kind of cover their tracks here. It shows that this movie had so much effort put in when there could have easily been a huge screw-up here, but they worked hard to cover their tracks. And, yeah, so, and then A Whole New World was... okay, I guess. Visually it wasn't that interesting, but it does cover up another plot hole from the original where it kind of flies all the way around the world, even for a magic carpet. That's kind of bullshit. This one is just kind of a tour of the Agrabah area. And I think that was a good idea. That's one thing, the effects in this movie. I'm kind of jumping around, but that's kind of my thing. So, the effects in this movie are really hit and miss. I think Genie looks pretty good. For what it is, I think he looks pretty good. Most of the effects in this look really good, except when it comes to the CG, when it comes to the green screens or the blue screens on the flying carpet. Those look really bad, especially both in A Whole New World and the final battle. I think when the escape from the cave looks pretty good, even though it's only a couple shots. But I think the escape from the cave looks pretty good. But A Whole New World and the final battle with Iago, which a lot of people may not know this, but the big bird that Iago turns into was a reference to actual Arabian mythology known as the Rock. R-O-K, not Dwayne Johnson. Obviously, Arabian mythology was made way before Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And then the new song, Speechless, I think is really good. I like it. I'm not going to go too much into it. This video is getting really long, so I'm going to kind of throw in my last few thoughts here. They cut a song called Desert Moon, which is a very good song. I am utterly pissed they cut it. I think it is a very good song. Would have made a very good scene, because it was a duet between Aladdin and Jasmine, while he's like riding on the camels with Jafar, going to the Cave of Wonders, and while she's kind of waiting for him up at her palace, because he said he was going to come back, but he got captured, and she doesn't know. So, and that would have been a very good song, and I'm still utterly pissed that they cut it. So, I think I pretty much covered... I know people complain about the final battle, where instead of like this big snake, they're flying against a giant bird. I thought the final battle was pretty cool. I thought, again, the green screens were kind of hit and miss, but I thought it had some really good shots. And this movie shot very well. I can give it credit for that. The slow motion's kind of gimmicky, but it works. I think Guy Ritchie really knows how to make slow motion work. I will never understand why people hated on this movie so much. I mean, I kind of get it, because it's the Disney remakes, but this was a legitimately good film, and audiences seem to recognize it. It got a 94 on the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, despite a 56% critic score, and it made over $1 billion at the box office. And I think this is the only of those 3 remakes or 4 remakes, actually, because Alice in Wonderland did too, that made $1 billion that actually fucking deserved it. This was a legit good film. This was my second favorite film of last year, behind Avengers Endgame. This was a fantastic movie. I loved it. The acting was solid. The story was very well told and incorporated new elements into the original that fixed a ton of plot holes. The music was still very good. I love Alan Menken's score. The songs were handled extremely well. The choreography for those songs were very good, and I thought the directing was very good, with a few couple exceptions, like I said, with the lady and One Jump Ahead, but those are really minor gripes. And yeah, that's about, and the action looked pretty good, and the effects were kind of hit and miss, but mostly hit. It hit way more often than not. It hit probably 90% of the time, and the 10% is mainly just the magic carpet green screens. Oh, I forgot to mention, Carpet looks pretty good, and he does some, and his physical acting, I guess, even though it isn't acting, it's CGI, it's still pretty good, and it actually conveys a character, kind of like just like the original. So yeah, this movie is really good. If you guys don't like this movie, I highly insist you at least give it a second chance. It's on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, it's an easy watch right there. I know it's a 2-hour movie, but I really recommend you guys at least give it a second chance and try not to compare it to the original. And if you're going to compare it, focus on the things that it fixes and does very well. So, yeah, next time since it's December, next time is going to be a Christmas movie that also got a mid-50s on Rotten Tomatoes. Alright. Until then, I'll see y'all next time. Bye!